On June 21st, 2024, Cole Hamels officially retired as a Philadelphia Philly. He was honored on Cole Hamels Retirement Night, just over 22 years after he was selected in the first round of the 2002 MLB Draft by the Phillies. Hamels pitched for the Phillies for 10 years, won a World Series and a World Series MVP, an NLCS MVP, had 3 All-Star appearances, received plenty of Cy Young votes, threw a no-hitter, contributed to another, and still might have been underrated. Hamels was a member of the legendary 2011 Phillies 4 Aces pitching rotation alongside stars Roy Halladay, Cliff Lee, and Roy Oswalt. This is episode 2 of the 4 Aces series, where I discuss each Ace's journey to the 2011 team and take a look back at their career. Cole Hamels is the spotlight of today's episode. If at any point you enjoy what you're watching, remember to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Feel free to leave a comment with your thoughts or opinions. Now onto the video. The crowning achievement of Cole Hamels' 15-year MLB career has to be what occurred during his 3rd season. Not just the World Series ring, but Hamels took home the World Series MVP trophy. The 24-year-old lefty made 5 starts throughout the postseason, going at least 7 innings in 4 of them, with a 1.80 ERA and a 4-0 record. And oh yeah, the only time Hamels didn't go 7 innings and didn't get a win, that was during the Game 5 clincher, where rainfall led to suspended play after Hamels polished off 6 solid innings of pitching. He had just 75 pitches, so the only thing that could stop Cole Hamels in the 2008 postseason was rain. But Hamels wasn't a dominant October pitcher from day one. Here's an extremely brief history lesson on the Phillies. After losing in the World Series in 1983, the franchise missed the playoffs 9 years in a row before making the World Series in 1993 and losing that one too. Then they missed the playoffs 13 years in a row until mid-September 2007, where the Phillies were 7 games back of the first-place New York Mets with 17 games to go. The Phils rattled off 13 wins in those final 17 games and stole the NL East crown from the Mets on the last day of the season. Hamels provided the Phillies with an ever-so-important 13-strikeout, 8 scoreless inning performance in the midst of this stretch. He also called the Mets choke artists. Those young, inexperienced 07 Phils may have been a little too high on themselves when they walked into Colorado for the NLDS against the Rockies, who swept them. Hamels got the ball for Game 1 and wasn't his sharpest, putting the Phillies in a 3-0 hole in the second inning, which they never recovered from. 17 years later, Cole Hamels spoke about the impact that game had on him.
I think at 23, when I lost that first playoff game to Colorado, we did lose that game, and I know we got knocked out. But I think going into the postseason against Milwaukee that next year, I just told myself, I'm like, what do I have to lose? I already lost one playoff game. I already lost a Game 1. It kind of simplified it for me. And then going to the Dodgers, that's when I started to develop the confidence. I always loved pitching against the Dodgers, always wanted to beat the Dodgers. I'm not going to lose games in California. And I just kind of kept that, and I built that confidence that I was like, I'm not losing. And when you have players like Jimmy hitting home runs in the first inning, I just needed 1 or 2 runs. Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks for getting it out the way early.
Wins in the series, 7 innings plus. So just talk about tonight's performance, knowing you had the chance to close it out.
It's just tremendous opportunity, and I think that's something that we have to say for the whole team. We went out there and we battled from the very beginning.
It stays in his glove. As we are swings and misses, he's down on 3 pitches and an easy inning for Cole Hamels.
2 out of the inning. Longoria in the air to center field. Victorino is there to end the inning.
It is my pleasure to present the 2008 Most Valuable Player Award to Cole Hamels.
Most of all, I'd love to thank you guys, the fans, because without you guys, it's a lot harder to go out there and pitch, especially in the rain. But you guys were here, and you stuck by, and you helped me get through that, and you helped our teammates get through that. So I thank you.
Wait, let's rewind just a little bit. Cole Hamels was the longest tenured Philly of any of the 4 Aces. Cliff Lee was with the team for about 4.5 seasons, Roy Halladay 4 seasons, and Roy Oswalt just 1.5. Hamels was with the Phillies for a total of 10 years and had been a member of the team for 5 years before the Aces assembled. Cole Hamels was an intriguing high school prospect with a fastball that clocked as high as 94 miles per hour until he broke his humerus. Doctors told him to pick a different sport. But Hamels was only interested in baseball, and come 2002, his senior year at Rancho Bernardo High School in San Diego, California, the Philadelphia Phillies selected him in the first round of the MLB Draft. He spent about 3 seasons down in the minors, and here's something fun. In 2005, he broke his pitching hand after getting into a bar fight. That might have delayed his journey to the big leagues a bit, but by 2006, he was in the show. After a solid rookie season where he showed some potential, he impressed in 2007, making the All-Star game in just his second Major League season. Hamels went 15-5 in his sophomore year with a 3.39 ERA, finishing 6th in National League Cy Young Award voting. During that season, opening day starter Brett Myers was moved to the bullpen, and the 24-year-old Hamels had to step up and become the team's ace, and he did just that, hence why he got the ball in Game 1 of the NLDS against the Rockies, as we discussed. Then he was great in 2008 with a 3.09 ERA and a National League best 1.082 WHIP, which culminated in NLCS MVP and World Series MVP for him and the Commissioner's Trophy for the team, as we discussed. Let's move on to 2009 as we venture a bit closer to 2011. Prior to the 2009 season, Hamels signed a 3-year, $20 million deal with the Phillies to avoid arbitration. He dealt with some injuries in 2009, and it was just an all-around poor season for him, the worst of his career to this point. Luckily for Hamels and the Phils, the front office went out and acquired Cliff Lee, who was the focus of Episode 1 of this series. Hamels' struggles carried over into the 2009 postseason, where he posted a 7.58 ERA in 4 starts. The Phillies lost to the Yankees in the World Series that year, despite Cliff Lee's dominance on the mound. Had he gotten a little help from his fellow ace Cole Hamels, maybe the Phils go back-to-back in 2008 and 2009. After a poor performance in Game 3 of the World Series, where the Phillies were now down 2-1 in the series, Hamels foolishly said that he wished the season would just end. A really dumb thing to say 3 games into the World Series. And teammate Brett Myers made sure he knew it was a really dumb thing to say. After the Phils staved off elimination with a Game 5 victory, Myers walked past Hamels' locker and asked him what he was still doing there because he thought he'd quit. Hamels did not take the insult lightly, and the two had to be separated. This is during the World Series, keep in mind, so maybe they weren't exactly in the right place mentally, and that's why they lost to the Yankees. This is where Cole Hamels faced tons of criticism. A year ago, he was World Series MVP and a hero in Philadelphia. Now, he was hated and viewed as a prima donna. Years ago, in Single A, Ryan Howard nicknamed him Hollywood for a multitude of reasons. He's from Southern California, but Hamels specifically remembers it because he was wearing shorts and flip-flops. That's the type of guy Hamels was, but in October of 2009, Hollywood was no longer a fun nickname, it was an insult. He thought he was better than everyone else. He was only concerned with himself. How dare he do commercials and promotional videos for Call of Duty, and he did a lot of commercials. This is the stuff he was criticized for, and it may be commonplace now at the time, but for Hamels, he was pinned as an egomaniac. In 2010, the Phillies led all of baseball in wins, and Cole Hamels posted at that point a career-best 3.06 ERA. Despite the scrutiny, the criticism, and the hatred he was facing from his own city, he bounced back. In the NLDS, he threw a complete game shutout in the Game 3 clincher, and in Game 3 of the NLCS, he allowed just 2 earned runs, but was pinned with a loss when the Phillies' offense was blanked. And finally, we arrive in 2011. The Phillies have Cole Hamels coming off a career year, Roy Halladay coming off an NL Cy Young Award-winning season, Roy Oswalt coming off one of the best years of his career, and they signed Cliff Lee, who was still at the height of his powers and desperately wanted to come back to Philadelphia and win a World Series. And just like that, the 4 aces are established. After a career year in 2010, Cole Hamels turned in, well, another career year in 2011. He had an outstanding 2.79 ERA with a sub-1 WHIP and a 14-9 record in 216 innings. He made the All-Star game along with fellow aces Roy Halladay and Cliff Lee and finished 5th in NL Cy Young Award voting. I'm not sure Hamels ever got the credit he deserved for his part in the 2011 season. Oswalt was good enough during the regular season, pretty underwhelming, and then not very good in the NLDS. Lee was amazing in the regular season and then not very good in the NLDS. On the other hand, Roy Halladay and Cole Hamels were incredible in both the regular season and the NLDS. Hamels pitched in Game 3 of the NLDS against the St. Louis Cardinals, where he threw 6 scoreless innings and struck out 8 in a win. Unfortunately, the Phillies fell to the Cardinals in 5 games, ultimately from the lack of offense. Then came the 10-year playoff drought and the end of the 4 aces. That's part of what made the 4 aces so memorable, is that they were only together for 1 season. Roy Oswalt's contract was up at the end of 2011 and he moved on to the Texas Rangers. Roy Halladay was a shell of his former self and only pitched for 2 more years before hanging things up. Cliff Lee pitched for 3 more seasons, but injuries got the best of him and he rode off into the sunset. But Cole Hamels remained in the majors for another 9 years, 3.5 of which were spent with the Phillies. Let me finish this video off with my personal opinion of Cole Hamels. I was young during his prime and during this time period, but as a young kid, I still loved baseball and more specifically, the Phillies. I had an instant connection to Cole Hamels because, well, my name's Cole. That's all a 5-year-old really needs to know for someone to become their favorite player. I didn't even need the World Series MVP. But I was always a very big fan of him. Had his poster on my bedroom wall, bobbleheads, the jerseys, everything. But here's what I remember about him. He was a very good pitcher, but not elite. What I mean by that is he wasn't on the level of guys like Roy Halladay and Cliff Lee, but he was still one of the best pitchers in the National League at the time. Again, I was young, but what I remember about Cole Hamels was after 2011, the Phillies were bad for a long time and he wasn't great either. The only thing is, that's not really true. Yes, the Phillies were awful post-2011, but Hamels wasn't. Though at the same time, he was cast as the villain of the Philadelphia Phillies. But that's the Philadelphia media, or media in general, right? I mean, just the other day, we had radio personalities saying Bryce Harper needs to be held more accountable. But that's the game, and I get it. They got to talk about something, and complaining or ripping someone often generates a lot of buzz. That's what they did for Hamels, and they did it for years. From 2012 to 2014, Cole Hamels gave the Phillies over 200 innings every year. He received Cy Young votes in 2 of those years. In 2013, he went 8-14 with a 3.60 ERA, an ERA not really worthy of a 14-loss season. And we're talking about 11 years ago, where as silly as it sounds, wins and losses were the number one statistic we cared about in a starting pitcher. That's just the product of being on a 73-win team. Cole Hamels was underappreciated during his time in Philadelphia. In his 10 years with the Phillies, he won over 100 games with a 3.30 ERA, 1.145 WHIP, and nearly 2,000 strikeouts. He was incredible in the 2008 postseason. He was one of the best in the game for years after the team's success. The Phillies just didn't surround him with any support whatsoever. Hamels' 2.46 ERA in 2014 flew under the radar, probably because of his 9-9 record, even though it was top 5 in the National League. He didn't even make the All-Star game that year. But after 2011, we saw the same thing happen to Cole Hamels that happened in 2009. He was the villain, the scapegoat. No, it didn't help that he didn't have the best attitude. No, it wasn't a good look when he drilled rookie Bryce Harper and then immediately admitted it was on purpose and he was welcoming him to the league. Hamels had such an odd career, really, but I guess you could say that about everyone. When you look at it, he was a young star with tons of potential for his first 3 years, then he had 1 bad year, then 4 great years. After 2011, his career pretty much consisted of playing for bad Phillies teams and then getting injured. After 2008, you probably would have predicted a few Cy Young awards in his future and maybe a Hall of Fame career. For one reason or another, that just didn't happen. Now, I don't have a problem with it, but it's just funny how at his recent retirement ceremony, he was met with such love. And that's the way it is in Philadelphia, and he understood that. All these years later, nobody has a negative word about him, but while he was playing and dominating, he was the enemy. He endured a lot in his stay in Philadelphia, about as tough as it can get, and he never ran or hid or made excuses. He could have left, but he signed a 6-year extension with the Phillies in 2012. He was loyal. He only left when it was obvious the Phillies had no interest in winning games, so he was traded. And as a parting gift, he threw a no-hitter in his final game as a Philly. Sometimes guys like Ben Simmons get a taste of the criticism and can't take it. Cole Hamels is a Philadelphia athlete through and through. He won a World Series MVP and for some reason wasn't beloved until years later. And for that, no Philly should ever wear number 35 again. That number deserves to be retired in Cole Hamels' honor. That does it for this one. If you enjoyed, do me a favor and leave a like on the video, comment your thoughts or opinions, and subscribe to the channel for more. Part 3, Roy Oswalt is up next, and Part 4, Roy Halladay, will close things out, and that one is going to come from the heart. You do not want to miss it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.